Disclaimer: the content of this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice for any medical condition they may have, and should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions. And now...
Yeah, we don't want to do anything to scare your children. That's the last thing we want to do. We don't want to scare anybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ben and Amy.
Hello, the Heavy Truth listeners.
Hi.
I'm Amy.
I'm Ben.
Welcome back to another episode of the Heavy Truth.
Yes, welcome. How was your St. Patty's Day?
That was great.
Yeah.
Didn't do anything. Made corned beef and cabbage, which was amazing.
Yum.
Reuben's, actually, to be honest.
Yeah. You made them or bought them, picked them up? What'd you do?
I made them with fresh corned beef.
Fresh corned beef.
Not sliced from the deli. I actually cooked the corned beef myself.
Look at you. Move over, Julia Child. Here comes Amy.
That's right.
Nice.
Did you?
We had corned beef and cabbage as well.
Did you make it?
I did not. Chris and I went to the Gays outside of Janesville, Josh and Jay, and we went and had corned beef and cabbage and
Potatoes and carrots.
carrots.
Irish bread. Was it Gale
soda
time?
bread. Yes, our friends from Madison, Wisconsin. Shout out to Mark and Joel. They made baked homemade soda bread, so it was great. It was real good. Everything was good.
Yeah. I know, probably I'm assuming maybe our listeners know this, but since you live, up in the Milwaukee area and I'm here closer to Chicago, we do a bunch of podcasts at once and kind of release them as our cadence is every other week.
I'm shocked. These aren't live?
Some of them are very close to being live, but we agreed that since, we do have a couple still in holding after this Oprah Winfrey special, that we thought it would be a great opportunity to talk about her special that she had on ABC this past week.
Right, because, that episode revolved around weight loss meds and the stigma of obesity. Obesity is a chronic disease, all kinds of things like that, right? So we thought it was a good thing to
touch
talk
on,
about.
right?
Talk about.
Yeah. And we've talked about the GLP-1 medications and, in depth a little bit, but again, this is more, like you said, around the stigma of it and how a lot of people maybe aren't educated on the disease of obesity. And I'm going to be honest, I know you agree with me because we talked about it right after the special aired, that I feel as though this was one of the first broadcasted topics or episodes or whatever shows on obesity and meds as a whole. And it was amazing. Yeah. I thought she did an amazing job.
Yeah, she did. And can we just say she looked amazing too?
She looked amazing.
Yes, her outfit was all very color. It was beautiful. She looked great.
She did look amazing. I mean, Oprah always looks great in my opinion, but yeah, I was just happy after the show, I'm like, wow, this is really amazing. And I knew all of my patients would be talking about it. So many people watched it. So we thought we'd kind of break it down a little bit and talk about the episode.
Yeah, for sure. I think it was great that it was someone, Oprah's caliber or Oprah's height of stardom or whatever you want to call it, show her struggles, right, with her obesity. And as we've seen her throughout, like she had even said, the decades from her show and everything else, right? Everyone always pointed about her weight because she was in the media. She was, in Hollywood. She was actually in Chicago, right? Harper's studio. But then they always would.
She's an easy target.
For
right?
Sure. And that's the bad part. But for her to be able to be very transparent, I think that's great. To say, hey, I'm on these meds. This is what they've done. This is what they've done for me. This is what I've done in the past. And then to have people from the actual companies and well-known people from, places like the Cleveland Clinic and Cedar Sinai,
Right.
actually discuss trials.
Physicians that are in that specialty and doing research behind all of these meds and obesity as a chronic disease. And really that's where, this conversation starts, is obesity is a chronic disease, and it's multifaceted. And honestly, in my opinion, from someone myself, and I know Ben as well, that has struggled with weight their entire life, it's eye-opening. And I guess I wish it will be more eye-opening for people just when they understand that it's not all about willpower, and it's not all about just move more and eat less. And she really honed in on that.
Oh yeah, for sure. The biggest thing that I think that I wanted to take away, not just about all the medications, getting rid of that stigma, but I think people don't realize, like you had said, that it is a chronic disease. It's not something so simple as don't eat this and lose weight, or calories in equals calories out, all these things, right? Because this is a disease. It's of epidemic proportions, right? Since the 70s, the medical costs alone, $173 billion a year in medical costs just in the United States for people that have chronic obesity, and the mortalities or comorbidities or diseases that go hand in hand with these, with obesity. That's crazy, just treating those as well.
Right. And that's just it. It's if, a lot of, and we'll get into this too, but, when insurance companies don't accept or they don't acknowledge obesity as being a chronic disease, they don't understand the fact that, well, if someone is not obese or doesn't struggle with overweight, then they're going to be at work more. They're not going to pay as much with medications or surgeries that may be associated with it. Right. So there's some upfront costs associated with these. So these medications that we will kind of touch on as well. But they don't see that as, it's almost like they're being reactive instead of proactive.
For sure. Or, like they had talked about, being a complex disease, right? I thought one good thing is that many of these other organizations now, the American Medical Association, the American Heart Association, what was the other one? The American Academy of Pediatric Physicians, right? They're all now stepping out and saying obesity is a chronic disease, and that these medications, are helpful in helping combat that's a chronic disease. And I thought a really good point was, and I've said this before, we don't stop blood pressure medications because you now have a good blood pressure, right? It's controlled with these medications, right? Or it's not an option where employers can say, opt out of blood pressure medications, right? And I know we'll get into more into that when we talk about insurance and things like that, but.
Yeah. And, these medications definitely are a game changer for many people. They have such great potential to change people's lives. And I see it in my practice. I know you do as well. And as long as individuals are taking these medications and using them as a tool, that is what's going to be the most successful for people. And hence why I'm a little bit more, let's just say stingy initially, because I want to make sure people start to make lifestyle changes, and that's a lot of what she talked about in the special too.
Not just her, but the other doctors on the show, the other people on the show that are on the medication, taking the medication, or even both the manufacturers, Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly, their representatives all said that same thing. These medications are a tool that used with lifestyle modifications, diet and exercise to get the results that people want. But not only to get the results, but to combat that chronic disease of obesity, right?
Yeah, for sure. And, there's some of the things that they were talking about, right, is why is obesity designated as a disease? What are some of the medications intended for, and eligibility of coverage, which we'll talk about that as well. And side effects, of course. A lot of these meds have gotten some bad
rap.
Yeah, right. Because of maybe lack of education.
No street cred.
No, right. But the thing is, it's lack of education. If you can find a lot of places that'll prescribe medications, and they just, here you go. They just kind of throw them at you.
Yeah, absolutely.
With no education. And these are the people that end up with severe GI side effects. And now, since it's becoming more popular, you're hearing lawsuits against these companies, which, I say, listen, some of these meds have been out since
Decades.
2012. Yeah.
Yes.
So this isn't new, folks. It's just more common now, and people aren't being educated properly.
Yeah. And I think you made a good point that education isn't just the patient education behind the piece, right? But it's also the provider education. Many of these medications have specific indications, right? There's that misbelief, I think, because of what the media, TikTok, all of that says. And I know the biggest one right now, right? And I think Oprah pointed that is Ozempic. The Ozempic craze. Everybody wants Ozempic.
The Ozempic face.
Yeah, the Ozempic face, all of that. But
what's your biggest pet peeve when people come in?
Asking for medication is that the lack of understanding the indications for these medications. And again, it's not, I don't blame them, right? Because it's their provider, it's their
social
media, all of that. My friend is on it, this and that. I always tell them the indications. So specifically, when they come in asking for things like, I want to be on Ozempic, I want to be on Mounjaro, I want to be on, my friend's on Victoza, my friend's on Trulicity, I let them know those are the indication for prescription for those medications are type 2 diabetes, with this very specific A1C causing you to be diagnosed as a diabetic, not pre-diabetic, not insulin resistance. These specifically, you have to be diabetic type 2, right? And now they found that on the back end of that, when they had these medications for diabetics, is that they were losing weight, right? And so that's where that craze came from. And that's my biggest pet peeve is that, great, so that social media is putting that out there, but let's be realistic on what these indications are actually for, or saying they have to be in conjunction with lifestyle modifications. Because I've had patients come in and they're upset because they've been on Wegovy for so many months and they haven't lost anything and they're having GI symptoms. And when I say to them, oh, well, are you doing X, Y, and Z? And there needs to be so much weight loss for, to be for another prior authorization. They're surprised because their provider didn't tell them about that. Many of these providers, of our family practice providers, have a very limited time to see these patients. And they're talking to them about everything, right? Your hypertension and your diabetes and your X, Y, Z. And so they don't have time to focus on obesity. And I think that's one of the things that Oprah and the specialists said. Send these people with chronic obesity, this chronic disease, to the specialists
to an obesity
who deal
specialist.
with weight loss and weight management and obesity specialists, because we have the facts behind it. We know how to.
We have the training.
We have
too.
the training.
We do so much education, and it's changing all the time, and it's just like any specialist, right? Neurology, orthopedics, dermatology. We specialize, we focus in on this. And so we have a lot more information and the ability to help our patients properly. And now a lot of insurance companies are requiring that patients are within a weight management program. So a lot of my patients, I see that, well, I'm here because I can't get any medications until I've been working with someone specifically for 6 months sometimes. I see that.
And you asked me my pet peeve. What's your pet peeve?
That is my pet peeve also. But if I were to say my other pet peeve is I have a patient patients will say, well, I'm coming to see you because my doctor said that you'll give me, let's just say phentermine, right? Which is a stimulant. And well, I'm just not going to give you a stimulant, right? I mean, we need to be working at things. There's other labs and tests that need to be done prior. And then they get mad. They get mad that I'm not doing it. And I go, well, I'm sorry, but this is how we work here. And if your doctor, your doctor can prescribe it as
Yes.
well. So that's what I say. And that's what people, they're like, oh, they get kind of mad about it. But after they understand where I'm coming from and they see how things are going in a good direction, they'll come back and say, thank you. I'm not, I know I was a little, maybe judgmental in the beginning, or I was upset or whatnot, but I understand what you're doing and I appreciate what you've done for me.
Yeah.
So that makes
No,
a
for
big
sure.
difference.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I always tell them, I give them this analogy, like I don't send patients to cardiology and say, your cardiologist is going to give you a blood pressure medication. The cardiologist is going to see you and they're going to determine what the steps are to what they're going to do. So that's
Yes.
exactly like for coming to us.
Oh, I had something really good. I don't know if I told you about, but I had somebody come in recently who was on one of these medications, and actually it was for diabetes, but it was also for weight loss, of course, because we know that happens.
Yeah.
And patient's A1C was 12 and was started on medication. And within maybe 6 or 7 months, A1C went down to 5.2, like within range.
Yeah.
Doc said, well, you're within range now, so we're going to discontinue it because you will no longer qualify for it because your A1C is within range. Well, patient didn't know any different, right? So has been off these medications for 6 months now, at least. Comes to me, I draw labs back up to 10. And again, it's education.
Yeah.
The reason your A1C is normal is
Medication
because
is
you're on the
bringing you there.
meds. It doesn't mean that you're not going to qualify anymore, right? Do you not qualify for, blood pressure meds because your blood pressure is normal?
Right.
Again, lack of education. So that's why this show was, for who watched it, it talked all about that.
And if you haven't watched it, by all means, watch it. It's a really good show because it breaks the stigma and breaks things down, right? We're not saying that if you don't believe in medications or XYZ, it just allows you to understand those of us, and I say us because I'm on a weight loss medication, those of us who have been on or are on a weight loss medication and who daily fight the battle of a disease that we have chronically, right? Because a big thing is that we need to stop shaming and blaming, right? That's the biggest thing. Fat shaming, right?
Yep, absolutely. And, the complexity of obesity, it's about genetics, environment, sleep, and we're going to get into an episode on sleep as well. And even the microbiome, you have these in your gut, when you're eating a lot of processed foods, high sugars, you can disrupt that.
Everyone's diet here in the United States. That's why we're one of the most obese nations in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. So it has a lot to do. There, again, like I said, multifaceted. This disease of obesity. And I actually had somebody it was right after this episode shared it or aired. It was someone from work. It was actually a coworker and said something like, what did you think of the show? And I said, I thought it was amazing. And they were like, well, so what do you mean? So you just think it's okay for people to take meds and then like that food noise, as they said, gets turned off? And it doesn't even make sense. And I go, listen, I said, for someone who has never dealt with this, and this was
It's exactly that.
This is someone, I love at work, and you've never dealt with it. You've had no issues with your weight. You do not understand what it means when that noise is turned off. You're constantly looking for something, for food. What's
Thinking,
your
what's your next meal? What's your next snack?
Is there something in the break room? I'm like, you haven't had to deal with it. I said, and consider yourself lucky.
Right. Yeah.
And to that comment there, she was just like, I had no idea.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I agree that a lot of people don't understand if they've never had it or dealt with it or things like that. Because I think the belief is that, being fat is a choice, right? If you just eat less and exercise more, right? Calories in, calories out. Oh, you brought it on yourself. You're lazy.
Lazy.
Right.
Yep.
That's all of those things are not true about most of these people, and I say most because, as she pointed out, there are some people that are fine in what she said, right? Bigger body, and they're fine with that, and most of us are not, right? And I can tell you, growing up, I was, and still am, I was always been very active. I played tennis. I used to.
Of course, you played tennis.
I played tennis, yes, with the goal of being in Wimbledon. But they wouldn't let me be in the. I couldn't go in the ladies' side of things. So even in drag, but that's for another show maybe. But I was always active, and so it wasn't that I was lazy, because I wasn't. But I can tell you, I dealt with that and deal with that food noise. And what we mean by food noise, through those of you that are listening that don't understand, is like what Amy and I said. You could be sitting here eating breakfast, eating your lunch, and you're thinking about, like you said, what's for dinner? I wonder if there's a snack in the break room. Oh, are we going to pick up X, Y, or Z tomorrow for dinner? What are we going to have? What's in the fridge? And always feeling like there's something you need to eat something. And so it's that food noise. And these medications help with that, help with that food noise.
For sure. I still am, like when I go on trips, like vacation and stuff, I still always pack snacks.
I do too.
Because I'm afraid, like, what if I'm starving and I need to eat something and I don't have anything available?
Yeah.
And
what if you get marooned on a desert island like Gilligan's and all that?
Yeah,
It'll
maybe
be fine.
that's
You have a coconut, something like that.
But I mean, right? Isn't that true though? Like you're kind of, and I may bring snacks and I try to do some healthy. I mean, of course, everything in moderation, but I want to make sure I'm prepared, for in case there's not something maybe down at the little snack area at the hotel or whatever. And
at the all-inclusive resort you're at.
Well, that's different. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, just so you kind of have it at your fingertips, just in case.
Yeah. No, I do too. I travel with some snacks as well, but I try to do protein forward things, only because, like you said, what if it's something I don't want where we are, or we want a snack or something? True. But I don't think that also that's us as now having lost weight and wanting to stay where we are. I don't want to have to grab that worst choice.
Yeah. That's,
unless I want it, and then it's a smaller portion of it, but it's not that, that fear. It's not that like I'm eating this snack, but then I'm also thinking, what am I going to have after this? That was what was in the past.
Yeah,
right?
No, that's true. Yeah, absolutely.
I'll give you a prime example and people will understand. And I said this to my mom a few weeks ago and she was like, oh, that never happened. You never did that. But she didn't know, right? It was a hidden thing. My father was a chef growing up and we always had dinner around 5:30, 6 o'clock. And I can tell you, I would get home from high school or school or whatever. And oftentimes, there was a Chinese restaurant near our house that I loved. To this day, there's still a great restaurant. And I would pick up a quart of chicken fried rice and eat it in my bedroom and then not hide it, but not bring it out to throw it away till no one was in the kitchen. And then still have dinner. And it wasn't that we weren't going to have dinner because we were having dinner, right? But it was just something that I did. And I had breakfast. I had lunch. I probably had a snack after school as well. In our a la carte line or something like that,
and mom never knew that you did that.
No.
Yeah. Right. That, and I think you and I talked about it this week. I think everyone who has issues with their weight or struggles with obesity always have maybe a tinge of binge eating.
Oh, for sure.
Right. Just a little sprinkle of it.
I agree.
If not, it's a lot more. But so some of these medications that they specifically talked about, wanted just to kind of mention some names and the indications for them.
Yes.
So you can be knowledgeable.
And the two types of indication are diabetes or
obesity,
right? And those are diagnoses that are put in by your providers in order to qualify for these medications to be prescribed. But then again, it's all up to insurance after that point. But yeah.
Right. So obesity is considered for anyone with a BMI over 30.
Over 30, right.
Overweight is anyone with a BMI over 25.
25. And many times the insurance companies, which we get there, will look at that and what they call comorbidities.
And 27,
And
though.
27 with comorbidities, right? Correct. But we'll talk about that in a minute. So, like we talked about the indication for these medications. So the big one is diabetes. And let me put it to it has to be type 2, right? Type 2 diabetes. And those medications are Trulicity, Victoza, Ozempic, and Mounjaro, right? Now, we know them.
Those are the injectables.
Those are the injectables, the injectable medications. Those are the names that people hear them by. But they have, other names as well, right? Trulicity is, what is Trulicity? Dulaglutide. And then Victoza is liraglutide, and Ozempic is semaglutide, and Mounjaro is tirzepatide, right? And so those are all for
That
type 2 diabetes, right? And they all have different doses and different things, right, in that. But on the backside, these medications were shown that they were people that were taking these were also losing weight.
Right.
So that's where some people were starting to get Ozempic to help with weight loss and blah, 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 and this and that. But then insurance, then many of these companies would rebrand and repackage these medications, some in different doses, and would put them out for obesity. But they, as the manufacturers and Oprah pointed out, they're not interchangeable, right? Like so then on the obesity side, they are called what? Saxenda, Wegovy, and the newest one is Zepbound. Now, to give you an example, what I talked about, Victoza is the same molecule, liraglutide, as Saxenda. They're not interchangeable, right? If you're out of Saxenda, we can't get you Victoza until the Saxenda comes back into stock.
Right. Because they're indicated for different diagnoses.
Yes, exactly. And so Ozempic is on the diabetic side, which is same molecule, right? Semaglutide, which is also Wegovy, same molecule, semaglutide, dosed differently for diabetes than it is for
weight loss.
Yes, Mike, I know.
Mike's giving us a
Mike is giving us that we're running
Thanks,
a little
Mike.
bit long, but this may be a little bit longer of a podcast.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
We could also pick it up as a part 2, but go on.
Yeah, and then we have tirzepatide, which is Zepbound on the weight side, obesity, and then Mounjaro on the diabetes side, and that is dosed the same, so to speak.
Right. But again, not interchangeable. If you're if you're on Zepbound and you get to a certain point and they're out of it, they're not going to give you the 10 milligram of Mounjaro that month, and then you go back to Zepbound when it comes back in stock. And that has to be very clear, especially when we start talking about insurance. All right.
Yeah. We are going to talk about insurance and getting these medications approved for one of our next podcasts, because I think that would be very important. I think people come in to see us and assume that, hey, I'm going to an obesity specialist. They're going to get my medications covered for me. And little do they understand or know that it doesn't have anything really to do with us. It has everything to do with their insurance.
No, it has everything to do with their insurance and their employer.
Right, absolutely. So I think, so we are going to be talking about prior authorization in our next our podcast. But, we actually could do almost a part 2 of this.
Well, let's do that. I'm going to make an executive decision, and we will do a part 2.
What are we going to talk about?
Oprah Special. I think we can just go on to talk about the medications and
how about the stigmas associated with it, the supply chain issues, and then maybe the future of these medications.
Perfect, so exactly.
Do you think that'd be a great idea?
Yeah, and then we can tie that all in and maybe touch a little bit on like insurance stuff, but again, we'll have a full episode where it's all about prior authorizations and things like that.
Yeah. Okay.
And then maybe we can have a special guest for talk about prior authorization stuff, or maybe I can get some info on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's good. I hope at least what we talked about this episode was telling and enlightening, and more to come. Stay tuned for part 2 of.
And if you haven't seen the special, it's an Oprah Special, Shame, Blame, and the Weight Loss Revolution. And it is, you can see it on Hulu for sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's, and I mean, I don't know if you can Google it and find it anyplace else, but.
It was on ABC and it's streaming on Hulu right now. So.
And there is an after show too that's about 20 or 30 minutes long, just with the specialist talk a little bit more and recap what was said then too.
Yeah. So good job, Oprah.
Thanks, Oprah.
But until next time, this is Amy.
And I'm Ben.
Remember to listen to us on all the
Spotify. Where else, Mike?
We're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Amazon Podcast, iHeart Podcasts, and Google Podcasts.
Oh,
wow.
well, there we are.
look
We're
at
available
that,
at all of those places.
We are. Follow us and like us.
And like us, tell your friends or hate us. I don't know,
And
but still follow
Facebook.
us.
We have Facebook page too.
And Facebook. Look at that. We are everywhere.
We are.
We are trying to break that stigma of obesity everywhere on our social media.
Saving lives 1 pound at a time.
One
Ben.
pound at a time.
Just go to theheavytruth.net to see where we're located at.
Is that where it is?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Mike, and thank you, Amy.
Thanks, Ben. We'll talk soon.
Yes, soon. Take care, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.